He saw her ring missing and suspected more. It wasn't a gradual realization. It was a punch to the gut, delivered in the sterile, unforgiving light of our kitchen. I just poured her a cup of coffee, the way she liked it, a splash of cream, no sugar. As I handed her the mug, her left hand reached out to take it, and that's when I saw it. The pale, stark band of untanned skin on her ring finger. The finger that for 7 years had been home to a simple platinum band. The finger that should have held the symbol of our life together. It was just gone. My own heart seemed to stutter in my chest, a misfiring engine. Sarah followed my gaze, her movement faltering for just a second, a tiny hiccup in the rhythm of our morning. Then she took the mug, her smile a little too quick, a little too bright. "Oh, this?" she said, wiggling her bare fingers. "The setting felt a little loose yesterday when I was gardening. I didn't want to risk losing the diamond, so I dropped it at Henderson's Jewelers on my way to get the groceries. They said it'll be ready by Friday." She took a sip of her coffee, her eyes meeting mine over the rim of the mug. "It's just for a few days, Mark. Don't look so worried." But I was worried. A cold, slithering dread was coiling in my stomach, because Sarah hadn't been gardening yesterday. It had rained all afternoon, and she'd been inside, curled up on the sofa with a book. I knew that for a fact. I'd been here with her. The lie was so small, so effortless, and that's what terrified me. It was the kind of lie you tell when you don't expect to be questioned, when you've already constructed a separate reality in your head. If you've ever felt that first, icy trickle of doubt in a relationship you thought was solid, you'll know exactly how I felt in that moment. It's not the shattering of trust, not yet. It's the first hairline crack so fine you almost miss it, but you know deep down that everything is now fragile. I forced a smile, my face feeling like stiff rubber. Right? Good thinking. Better safe than sorry. I turned back to the counter, pretending to busy myself with the toast, but my mind was racing. Henderson's Jewelers. It was a plausible place. We'd bought the ring there, but why lie about the gardening? It was such an unnecessary detail. Maybe she'd just gotten the days mixed up. Maybe she'd been gardening the day before yesterday and I'd forgotten. That was the man I was, the man she'd married. Trusting, sometimes to a fault. I believed in us. I believed in our lazy Sundays, our shared jokes about the terrible reality TV we loved to hate. The way her head fit perfectly in the crook of my neck on the couch. We had built a life. A good life. Or so I'd thought. We'd met in college. 2 awkward English majors colliding in a dusty library stacks. I was trying to reach for a collection of Yeats poems, and she was on the other side, pulling the same book. Our hands touched. I remember her laugh, not embarrassed, but bright and genuine. "It seems the universe wants us to share," she'd said. I was a goner from that moment. She was all light and energy, a force of nature that pulled my quieter, more reserved self into her orbit. I proposed 5 years later on a windswept beach at sunset, fumbling with the ring box as the waves crashed. She'd said yes through tears of joy, and when I slid that ring onto her finger, I'd felt like I was sealing a promise, not just with her, but with the universe itself. We were a team, Mark and Sarah against the world. But now, standing in our sun-drenched kitchen, the ghost of that ring on her finger felt like a mockery. The morning continued with a forced normalcy that was more painful than any argument. She chatted about her plans for the day, a yoga class, then lunch with her friend Chloe. I nodded, making all the right sounds, but I was watching her. I was studying the woman I loved like a stranger. Was there a new lightness to her step? A different cadence to her voice? Or was I just seeing phantoms, conjuring monsters from the shadows of my own insecurity? After she left, blowing me a kiss from the doorway that felt like a shot through my heart, the silence in the house was deafening. I called in sick to work. My project management spreadsheets and conference calls felt like relics from another lifetime. A lifetime where my wife didn't look me in the eye and lie about gardening. My first move was a simple one. I picked up the phone and called Henderson's Jewelers. "Hi," I said, trying to sound casual. "My wife, Sarah Evans, dropped her wedding ring off for repair recently. I just wanted to confirm your closing time tonight." The woman on the other end was polite. Let me check for you, sir. I heard the clicking of a keyboard. I'm sorry, we don't have a repair order under that name. Are you sure it was us? The world tilted slightly on its axis. Oh, maybe I'm mistaken. Sorry to bother you. I hung up, my hand trembling. The lie was now confirmed. She hadn't taken the ring to be fixed. So where was it? And why had she taken it off? Tell me in the comments. What would you do in this situation? Would you confront her immediately? Or would you do what I did? I started to dig. I felt sick doing it, like I was defiling something sacred. I went to our shared laptop. Our password was our anniversary. Felt like a bitter joke as I typed it in. I checked her email first, my pulse thudding in my ears. Nothing out of the ordinary. Newsletters, receipts, a few back and forths with Chloe about their lunch plans. Then I looked at her browser history. Mostly interior design blogs, recipes, the usual. But then I saw it. A single entry from 2 days ago. A search for the Oak Ridge Hotel. It was a boutique, upscale place about 40 minutes away. My blood ran cold. Why would she be looking that up? We had no plans to go there. We didn't have the money for a fancy night out. Not with us saving for a down payment on a bigger house. A house we wanted to fill with the pitter-patter of little feet. The dream of a family was one we held close. A shared beacon for our future. The thought that she might be betraying that future, in some anonymous hotel room, made me physically ill. I grabbed my car keys. I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to see. I had to know if the nightmare taking root in my mind was real. The drive to the Oak Ridge Hotel was a blur. I parked across the street, hidden in the shade of a large oak tree, feeling like a character in a bad detective novel. I felt a profound shame, but it was drowned out by a louder, more primal need. The need for the truth. I sat there for what felt like an eternity, watching the polished glass doors of the hotel. And then I saw it. Her car. Her little blue Honda Civic. The one with the coexist bumper sticker I teasingly stuck on for her. Pulled into the valet parking. My heart stopped. And then it shattered. Because she wasn't alone. The passenger door opened, and a man got out. I couldn't see his face clearly, but he was tall, wearing a dark suit. He walked around the car, took her hand as she stepped out, and they walked into the hotel together. Just before the doors swallowed them, she laughed, tilting her head back in a way I hadn't seen her do in months. It was the laugh she used to reserve for me. I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles were white. The world outside my windshield continued, bright and sunny and utterly indifferent to the fact that my life had just ended. The betrayal was a physical pain, a hot, sharp knife twisting deep in my gut. I thought I might vomit. All the love, the trust, the shared dreams. It all felt like ash in my mouth. I drove home in a daze, the road a watery smear through my tears. When she came home that evening, she was humming. She dropped her yoga mat by the door and came to kiss my cheek. "Hey you, how was your day?" she asked, her voice laced with a casual warmth that now felt like the most sophisticated of performances. I looked at her, really looked at her. I saw the faint glow on her skin, the relaxed set of her shoulders. She looked happy, truly vibrantly happy, and I was the cost. "It was fine," I managed to say, my voice rough. "Yoga good." "Oh, centering," she said with a wave of her hand, moving to the fridge. "Chloe and I had a great lunch too. That new salad place on Elm." Another lie stacked neatly on top of the others. I wanted to scream. I wanted to grab her and shake her and demand to know who he was, why she was doing this, how she could stand there in our home and look me in the eye. But I didn't. A cold, hard resolve was settling over the initial, raw heartbreak. This wasn't just a moment of passion. This was a calculated deception. She had created a whole double life with yoga covers and fake jewelry repairs. The woman I loved was a stranger. No, she was an enemy who had infiltrated my life. The love I felt began to curdle, transforming into something darker, more potent. Anger, and a desire for a revenge that was as calculated as her betrayal. For the next 2 days, I played my part perfectly. I was the attentive, slightly distracted husband. I asked about her day. I listened to her stories about Chloe and her yoga instructor's bad jokes. I was an actor in the play she had written, and I was giving the performance of my lifetime. But inside I was plotting. I needed more than just suspicion. I needed proof. I needed to know who this man was. I started tracking her movements more carefully. I noted the times she was running errands that took longer than they should. I checked our phone bill online and found a number that appeared with a frequency that was anything but casual. Multiple texts, long phone calls, sometimes late at night when she thought I was asleep. A reverse lookup gave me a name, David Carter. The name meant nothing to me. I fell down a rabbit hole, scouring social media until I found him. David Carter, a partner at a prestigious law firm in the city. He was in his late 40s, handsome in a polished, silver fox kind of way. His profile was a curated gallery of success. Charity galas, sailing trips, a tasteful apartment with skyline views. A world away from my middle management existence and our cozy, mortgage-strangled suburban home. Was this what she wanted? A life of luxury? Had our dreams of a family and a simple, happy life become boring to her? The thought was a fresh wound. Stay till the end because what happens next will shock you. Certainly shocked me. I decided to follow her again. On Thursday, she said she was going to a late yoga session. I knew it was a lie. I was parked down the street from our house when she left, not heading towards the studio, but towards the city. She drove to a quiet, tree-lined street of townhouses, the kind that screamed old money and discretion. She parked and walked up to one of the doors. It opened before she could knock, and David Carter stood there. He pulled her inside, and I saw his hand, for just a moment, cup the back of her head, a gesture of intimate possession. This was more than a sordid hotel rendezvous. This had the feel of a routine, a second home. I felt a rage so pure and white-hot it blinded me for a moment. I had to know what was happening inside that house. I had to hear it. I know how that sounds. It was a line I never thought I would cross. But betrayal had scorched away all my boundaries. The next day, while she was out at her actual yoga class, I drove to a sketchy electronics store downtown and bought a small, voice-activated audio recorder. It felt heavy and sinister in my hand, a tool of espionage, not marriage. When she got home, I planted it in her car, tucked deep under the passenger seat. I felt like the lowest form of life, but the anger was a fuel that burned away the shame. The payoff came sooner than I expected. The next day, Friday, the day her ring was supposedly ready, she said she was going to the farmer's market. I waited until she was gone, then accessed the recorder's feed via its paired app on my phone. I was in my home office, surrounded by the artifacts of our life together. Framed photos of us smiling. A vase she'd made in a pottery class, and I put in my earbuds. I heard the sound of the car engine, the rustle of her bag. Then her voice crystal clear. She was on the phone, connected to the car's Bluetooth. "I'm on my way," she said, her voice giddy. "I just told him I was getting the ring. God, I feel sick lying to him, David. He's just so clueless. He has no idea." My stomach clenched. Clueless. David's voice came through, smooth and confident. "It's almost over, sweetheart. Just a little while longer. Once the transfer is complete, we can be together properly. You won't have to live in that little house, pretending to be happy with a man who doesn't deserve you." I froze. The transfer? What transfer? This wasn't just an affair. This was something else. "I know," Sarah said, her voice dropping. "It's just the money. It's the last piece. Once it's in your account, we can go. I've already started packing a bag little by little." He hasn't noticed a thing. The world seemed to shrink to the sound of their voices in my ears. Money. A transfer. My money. Our money. The savings account. The one we'd been meticulously building for 5 years. The down payment for our future. The fund for the family we wanted to start. She wasn't just stealing my wife. She was planning to steal my future, our future, and hand it to this man. The betrayal was so much deeper, so much more vile, than I had ever imagined. This was the second twist, the one that turned heartbreak into a cold, murderous fury. I spent the rest of the day in a fugue state of rage and planning. I checked our joint savings account. It was all still there, over $80,000. Our entire life savings. She was waiting for the right moment, probably to move it somewhere I wouldn't see, before transferring it to him. She was going to leave me penniless and broken-hearted. A punchline to their cruel joke. Well, I wasn't going to be a punchline. I was going to be the punch. I accessed her email again, and this time, I knew what I was looking for. I found drafts of emails to David, deleted but not fully purged. They were full of plans and endearments that made me sick, but they also contained a crucial detail. They were waiting for a final confirmation on something related to his firm before they pulled the trigger. I had a window, a small one. I went to the bank the next morning, first thing. I told the manager, a kind-faced woman named Brenda who knew us both, a story about a can't-miss investment opportunity that had come up suddenly, and that I needed to move the funds to a new high-yield account I'd set up. I played the part of the excited, slightly frazzled husband, and with a few signatures, I moved every last cent of our joint savings into a new, private account in my name only. It was our money earned by both of us, but in that moment it felt like a strategic move in a war she had started. I was draining the swamp before the invaders could claim the treasure. The guilt was a small, distant voice, drowned out by the roaring in my ears. This was survival now. The day of reckoning arrived. It was a Tuesday. Sarah had been nervous all morning, checking her phone more than usual. I knew why. The transfer she and David were planning was likely imminent. She was probably waiting for a signal from him. She was dressed up, more than usual for a Tuesday. I have a lunch meeting with a potential client, she told me, not meeting my eyes. A big one, for the freelance business. Another lie. Her freelance graphic design business was more of a hobby, bringing in a few $100s a month. I just nodded. Good luck. I hope you get it. The words tasted like poison. She left and I gave her a 10-minute head start. Then I got in my car. I knew where she was going. Not to a business lunch, but to David's townhouse for a celebration, or perhaps to finalize their plans to destroy my life. I drove there, my heart a cold, hard stone in my chest. I parked behind her car, blocking her in. I walked up to the door, and without hesitating, I rang the bell. The door opened, and it was David, his tie loosened, a glass of wine in his hand. His smug expression faltered when he saw me. "Can I help you?" he asked, his lawyerly composure slipping for a fraction of a second. "I'm here for my wife," I said, my voice dangerously calm. I pushed past him into the foyer, and there she was, standing in the living room, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated horror. "Mark, what are you doing here?" "The ring was never at the jeweler's, Sarah," I said, my voice echoing in the tastefully silent room. "And you haven't been to yoga in weeks." The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. David recovered first, stepping forward, putting himself between me and Sarah. "I think you should leave," he said, his voice low and threatening. "This is private property." I laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Private property where you're planning to steal from me? Our savings? Was that the plan, David? Seduce my wife and have her clean out our accounts for you?" Sarah's hand flew to her mouth. How do you know about that?" "I know everything," I said, my eyes locked on her. "I heard your conversation in the car. He's so clueless. Remember?" The color drained from her face. She looked from me to David, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. "It's not what you think, Mark," she stammered. "Isn't it?" I took a step closer. "You took off your ring. You lied to me. You're here, in his house, planning to take the money we saved for a family and run away with him. What part am I getting wrong? Sarah? Enlighten me." David puffed out his chest. "This is between you and her. I want you out of my house now, or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," I said, a slow, cold smile spreading across my face. This was the moment, the final twist. "Call them. I'd love to explain to them how a partner at Carter and Lowell is conspiring to commit felony theft and fraud. I have the emails, David. I have the audio recording of you two discussing the transfer of my funds into your account. I moved the money this morning. It's gone." It's in an account you will never, ever touch. I turned back to Sarah. And as for you, you can have him. You can have this life of lies and betrayal. But you won't have a single cent of our future. You gave up any right to it the moment you took off that ring and started plotting with him. The look on her face was one of utter devastation. It wasn't the devastation of a lost love, but of a lost payday. That was the final, brutal confirmation. She wasn't heartbroken about us. She was heartbroken about the money. I turned and walked out of that townhouse, leaving the two of them in the wreckage of their scheme. The Florida sun was bright on my face, and for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The heartbreak was still there, a deep, aching hollow in my chest, but it was no longer mixed with the poison of doubt. I knew the truth. The anger was still there, but it was a clean burn now, a fuel for moving forward, not a toxin for rotting from the inside out. I got in my car and drove away, not looking back. I was driving towards a future that was uncertain, broken, and mine alone. But it was mine. She had tried to take everything from me, but in the end, she had only taken herself. And that, I realized as I merged onto the highway, leaving their world behind, was the greatest gift she could have ever given me. The divorce papers were delivered a week later. I contested nothing except the division of assets. My lawyer, a pit bull of a woman I'd hired with my money, made sure the premarital agreement we'd signed, something I thought was silly at the time, was ironclad. Sarah got nothing of the savings. She was left with David, a man who had wanted her as an accessory to a crime, and the shattered pieces of the life she had thrown away. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel the ghost of her laugh, the memory of her hand in mine. But then I remember the sight of her bare finger, and the cold, calculated lie in her eyes, and the feeling passes. I survived. If this story touched you, if you felt that punch to the gut, that shiver of recognition, that fire of anger, then you understand. This is the kind of pain that changes you forever. Hit subscribe and don't miss the next heartbreak that will leave you speechless. Because the stories here on Betrayal tells, they're all too real.